International Meetings Review joined a record 450 delegates from 56 countries for the 79th edition of the UFI Congress held this year in Abu Dhabi. The success of the event, for organisers of international exhibitions, owed much to the location of the meeting being so readily accessible for delegates from Europe, Asia and the Americas. But the other explanation for the uptick in attendance was the theme, namely, where is the growth coming from? The answer, it turned out, was from each other.
What I say to people, when they say to me, why should I come to the Congress, is if you want to do business in pretty much any country in the world, I can find you either somebody from that country who's here or somebody who's done business there and really knows how to do it. So that's exactly what it's all about. And I would defy anybody to come up with a country where I can't find the right people for them to talk to. That's what the meeting's here for.
Well, the exhibition market's changed. I'm an old hat in it now, but if you look at the market, it's no longer about pile it high, sell it cheap. It's now about a much more targeted visitor campaigns. You know, it's quality rather than quantity. And that means we have to go out and look for our buyers more intensively, arrange their meetings more, and know more about both the visitor and the exhibitor and how they can meet. We want to be local wherever we are. We know we cannot know as much about the Turkish market as our Turkish partner. We can bring the international brands, we can bring the international exhibitors and visitors, but he knows what's going on the ground in, say, Turkey.
Most of the smaller and medium-sized companies, they do know that they can't do it on their own. So they need other people, other companies. So a lot of discussions, and you see that especially in the special interest groups. I mean, we have 3 special interest groups now. One is on large venues, the other one is on China, and the third one is on family business. Well, it's amazing how the special interest group family businesses is talking about the same subjects, which reflects to all of the companies. And one of them is, of course, how do we cope with internationalization, with globalization?
When we decided to go to Singapore, it was the direct result of me attending UFI, because I went back to my partner in the United States, who actually lived in Singapore for 4 years, and I said it's an area that I think we can develop and bring our brand to, as well as Europe, as well as the Middle East.
The networking here is extremely important. It's not only that you have the opportunity to meet potential partners, but the aspect of learning a lot of things, understanding how the world of trade shows, how the world of exhibition works, what's going on where, gives you a complete picture of the global industry, and that I think, and I always felt it personally, is extremely valuable.
There is such a thing as a cycle, and it will go on, and I can confidently predict that we are in a growth phase now that will run through for another 5 or 6 or 7 years. I think the US economy is very securely recovering. I think we've got solid housing growth. I see the slowdown in China very evident as a positive. You know, heavens knows, it's a slowdown from 9% to 8 or 7. You know, that's great. I think the momentum in most of the emerging world remains very solid. And I think if you look at Europe, there are parts of Europe which are very competitive.
There's no end of opportunity. It's a matter of how you go about harnessing the potential. And that's what a lot of organisers are trying to grapple with right now. You know, you're seeing a very high double-digit growth in markets like China. But having said that, you know, you look at places like Brazil. This is a fantastic market also.
I think that's the obvious place to look, China and India, but I think there are other emerging markets that are just as key. Africa, which is 1 billion consumers, and South America. So I think at the moment the safe bet is to go to China and India. But in terms of return on investment, because it's such a competitive market, I think people need to think clearly about whether there are other markets that are slightly smaller, but that might have a higher return on impact, if you like.
If we want to see where will the growth be, I think there will be luxury services, services to the medium and not just the high net worth individuals, but services to the medium rich. I think that is an area which your industry can major on. Obviously high technology, obviously medical services. An older world needs more medical services. I think there are also opportunities in finance, in wealth management, and I think there will be energy and resources, of course.
We still have huge growth, I think, in the energy sector. You know, there's increasing demand, especially in the emerging markets. Their demands for energy are putting pressure on exploration, discovery, and refining.
We originally started focusing on the Russia and former CIS countries, so Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Ukraine, and areas particularly in the market sectors that we focus on, such as oil and gas. So anywhere that's got oil and gas, then hopefully we'll have a show there, in the Eastern Europe countries anyway. And then we started looking at other high growth markets that are also opening up, such as Turkey, and we've recently been interested in India, and we have a small business in India that we're growing, and also we're now looking at the other markets that other organisers are also interested in, such as Southeast Asia.
A lot of it's about education, transfer of technology. You know, extraction is very technical, and it's easy to get the first 10%. It's more difficult to get the last 10%, and I think that's where technology transfer can help. And so if through exhibitions we can create that learning environment which enables the technology transfer to take place, then I think they've got a valuable role to play.
I would look at countries that have what you call a comparative advantage, where there literally are resources on the ground, you know. So Zambia, Angola, Mozambique, these are countries that have got strong natural resources where China is in there extracting some of these things, and I think they're going to be needing the kind of services that our exhibition industry can offer. The question is, can people culturally start to run businesses in other parts of the world?
Our business in Europe is stagnant or reducing, and we're getting our growth from the new economies, Brazil obviously, China, here in the Middle East, Russia, and more and more places like Turkey, hopefully Mexico, Indonesia, and some places like North America.
There's something called the International Buyers Program. There's about 40 exhibitions in the United States, and foreign delegation leaders and the different outposts are actually charged with bringing in delegations, foreign delegations, recruiting and bringing in the buyers to the United States. So we have seen an uptick definitely in the numbers of people coming into the United States. In terms of going abroad, not very many will, because the United States is so large. Certain shows will do the geo-cloning, but not very many, because over 60% of the trade shows in the United States are association owned. They're not for-profit private companies. So their charge is to actually stay in the United States. There are a few, like CES, do a show in China, but it's the exception rather than the rule. But I was just talking with Tom Cindric from World of Concrete, Hanley Wood, and they're launching a show next year in India.
10 years ago, the members of CISO, probably 25% were doing business globally. Now it's over 50% who are doing business globally. So globalization is a huge part of what we look for in the exhibition industry. Obviously the Europeans, especially the Germans, much more ahead of the United States organizer, because don't forget, still 50% of the world's organized shows are in the United States. That says that the United States organizer has to look beyond its borders, and that's why we see many more people looking outside of the United States to extend their brands. It's something that's absolutely going to happen. We entered into a reciprocal relationship with UFI 4 years ago, which has been very beneficial for both us, CISO, and UFI, because we've seen so many members that we've been able to get to join CISO, and vice versa, so many US members who are now members of UFI. So that's a good change.
Globalisation has hit us. Here we are. We've got an enormous amount of countries being represented at the UFI Congress, and I think it's important that the level of professional services being extended to them is also global.
We're going to be in Korea next year. It'll be the first UFI Congress in Korea. Korea is a big market for UFI. We have 18 members in Korea. All of the key players in the Korean market are there. It's nicely situated between China and Japan. As you know, we have an Asian president, a president from China, just coming in to take over the presidency of UFI now.
I will use my advantages of the region to encourage more people from Asia countries like China, like Indonesia, Japan, to participate in the activities which we organized. At the same time, I also would like to do something for our organization. That means I will encourage the people from Latin America to be more involved in our association's activity.
We are planning to launch next year an UFI Latin American chapter. We're working very closely with AFIDA, the regional federation in Latin America, and that's a 2-year program really to build up UFI's presence, build up the links between our members, the AFIDA members, the industry in Latin America, which will culminate in November 2014 with our first Congress in Brazil, in Sao Paulo.
What we're doing in emerging markets is the same thing that we're doing everywhere. Our industry is about one thing: connecting buyers and sellers, creating communities, making a marketplace.
It's about sharing information, and I think what it does, it just reinforces the importance of face-to-face meetings. Yeah, the exhibition event market is great, technology is wonderful, but you can't put things in context. You can't always ask the right question, but when you can look somebody in the eye, and that's what UFI does fantastically well.
We're living in a global village, we're living on planet Earth, it's kind of cool.